the whole premise of your book, which you called name theology and glory theology, it sounds like, and I will ask you this, it sounds like you're saying that the name is a distinct person or a different person from God. So that's interesting. You were reading from John 17, where Jesus says, I have revealed your name to those you have given me. John 17, verse 6. And then later in this chapter, he uses it a few more times,
Mm.
this name. He says in verse 11 of John 17, Holy Father, protect them by your name, the name you gave me, that they may
Mhm.
be one as we are one. Verse 12, I protected, preserved them by your name, the name you gave me. I side with many of your fellow Trinitarian scholars, study Bibles. I was looking up the Net Bible on the name in Exodus 3. I know you make a distinction about that in your book and in your opening, that you're not appealing to Exodus 3, or it sounds like any other reference to the name, only in the Chronicles passage. But again, I side with study Bibles that say that the name is simply another way of speaking about the nature or character of the person of God. That's from the Net Bible, and anyone can look it up in their footnote on Exodus 3:15. The pulpit commentary on the prayer, hallowed be your name, or hallowed be the name, that description of him, which embraces all that he really is. The prayer, hallowed be your name, is that God's manifestation of himself may be acknowledged. And of course, also, as you alluded to, the name simply means authority, power, the agenda, if you will. For example, you have Matthew 28:19. Preach the gospel, baptize the nations in the name, or into the name more properly. So the name there, I would side with standard, again, scholars, Trinitarian scholars, for the most part, obviously. You also said that you appeal a lot to the church fathers, but then you criticize some of the scholarship I use from the 1950s, earlier. And I would just say, well, what makes the church fathers who are ancient? And you're saying, well, those are outdated scholars. So I don't think that's a good critique of using, so-called outdated scholars that you simply do not agree with. If you don't agree with a certain scholar, you simply do not agree. And obviously, these scholars, for the most part, I do not agree, as you say, because they're obviously Trinitarian. You also said that all divine titles are shared. That's not right. Pantocrator, Almighty, is never shared with the Son of God. I asked the audience to check this. Almighty is never used. Jesus is never called the God of gods, which is a title that appears in the Old Testament, in the book of Daniel, I believe twice. So there are very exclusive titles. The Hebrew title El Shaddai is never used with the Son of God. That should tell you something. Obviously, Jesus is not the Ancient of Days. He might look like the Ancient of Days in the book of Revelation in the eyes of the Apostle John, who wrote the Apocalypse, but that's a different matter. You can look like your father, by the way. Oh, you said at one point that you cannot believe that people use grammar to prove an individual or a person. In other words, to identify someone. Well, you were just using it for the Holy Spirit. If we cannot use grammar to identify a speaker in a narrative, in a text, in a book, any book, by the way, let alone the Bible, well, what else can we use?